I think we're good. Wow, look at that number. People just going up, going crazy. Welcome everybody to Follow Up Boss Office Hours. We have some special guests today, and we'll get into that in just a minute, but we'll give you guys a minute to hop on. We're going to focus a bit on onboarding and utilization, agent adoption of Follow Up Boss, but we have lots of great stuff to go over. So as always, so I'm Lee Adkins, joined by Mr. Jeremy Smith. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm good, Lee. How are you?
I'm very well. And Lyndon, what's going on?
Hi, Lee. How are you? Thanks for having me again today.
Absolutely. So office hours, just to be clear with everybody, for office hours, the goal is for you guys to hop on and ask us questions. We'll ask Casey and company questions. And we definitely want this to be interactive. So we have some things we'll cover up front, but certainly if you have questions, you're welcome to post them in the Q&A as we go, and we will get to those. If you want to raise your hand, there should be a button at the bottom or under participants. Actually, you don't see participants. There's a place you can raise your hand, and if you raise your hand, we'll bring you on screen, and you can ask some questions. So
we have surprises, right? For people to raise their hands, they might get a little FUB swag here and there if they want to come on camera. That's been rumored. We do that.
That's the rumor. Sometimes people just saying. So we are joined today by the guys from Florida Realty, Casey, Alisa, Nikki, and Noah. Casey, why don't you start? Can you guys just each give an individual intro and kind of tell us about your role there at the company?
Sure. My name's Casey Trey, Florida Realty. I've been a broker for about 16 years, and that's about it.
Yes.
The end.
All right, I will go. My name's Alisa. I'm on the operation and transaction side of things. So I'm helping oversee our deals and onboarding new agents, teaching them how to use our systems and making sure that their first few transactions are successful. So I'm really into systems and processes and streamlining everything for all of our agents.
Awesome.
I'm Nikki. I'm a licensed realtor, and I'm also the office manager.
And I'm Noah. I'm a licensed real estate agent as well. I do a lot of the listing side stuff, taking photos and things like that. And I also manage all of our technology processes, kind of helping Alisa make everything flow right and ensure everything is kind of syncing up.
Awesome. That's great. So one of the things about you guys is you guys are such powerful Follow Boss users. Like, it's really, really impressive to me how well you guys use all the features specific to what they're for. I want to touch a bit on the onboarding and agent process, just because it is our title, but there's so many things we can cover here as well. And even in preparation, we talked a little bit about this, the fact that you guys have actually learned that you're not looking for a bajillion agents, and you're not just going to try to force the square peg into the round hole. Can you talk just a little bit about your strategy in the sense of, like, who is a good fit for you guys, and what do they go through once you decide they're a good fit?
So, and I guess without going like too far back, I feel like it's important a little bit to just talk about, I guess, what our current process was, or our process was for a while. We would, to onboard people, we really took an approach that we were putting people under our wing, and we would just, be side by siding. We were spending a lot of time with people, and what we learned is that it was very time consuming, and not everybody was a great fit. So you'd have people that would wow you in an interview because they were great communicators, a good sense of humor, but then when it came to the organization and accountability and self-sufficiency, it just wasn't there. So you devoted a lot of time to somebody that may or may not be able to, to make it. And on the flip side, we may have had an interview where somebody, we didn't really connect with, but they're a rock star in organization and things like that we never would have known had we not given them an opportunity. So, through time, I guess we kind of we put recruiting on hold. Honestly, we just kind of, since it was so time consuming, we weren't actively looking for people anymore, because, you'd have some people that you really believed in, and, they didn't work out, or they left, or, things like that, it just really, we tabled it. So we moved over to systems within the CRM. So we, systemizing our process, making this experience better for our consumers, making the experience better for our current agents, just working within that in order to create a better process. But in our discovery and doing that, I feel like we went back to, thinking that we can duplicate that same system and put it in for an onboarding process to be able to minimize the amount of time that we needed to put into kind of getting agents up to speed and made it a little bit more, kind of self-sufficient. So we pretty much took the same concept and the way that we were doing, everything in a really organized way and put it into something on the front end, which we utilize Google Classrooms for that. And we structured it as levels. So, the agent that, comes in, I'm really not looking for, I'm not in a race to get all the agents in our town. That's not what it was ever about for us. We're looking for culture fit people. We're looking for people that are coachable, willingness to learn, if they're going to be representing our brand and being out with the public, interacting with people, we want them to, that's what's important to me. I can train people. I can, I don't care how many houses they sold or, that's not something that's really important to us. It is, some people are afraid of technology, afraid of embracing, change, and they're probably not people that are a good fit for us. We joke about it all the time where it's kind of like a roller coaster that we're on because we're not very complacent for very long. We do make a lot of shifts and a lot of changes, but I feel like that enables us to get better every day. So with the agents, we just kind of put their seatbelt on and they know that they're safe and we're still, we're not going these bigs up and down, but we're always experimenting. And I feel like that is what enabled us to kind of get to where we're at now. But with the onboarding process, they're working through stages. So we're doing an interview. Again, we've learned interview wasn't a great way of, just that short period of time to determine whether they're going to be a good agent or a good fit. So once they're starting, they're going through this training that's self-paced. So we know that person that we interviewed with, that they have no other job, they have no other responsibilities, and they want to be, a rock star in real estate. And a month and a half later, they're on level 3. Well, then that's a pretty clear picture. I mean, that didn't require any of my time, and that kind of paints a picture on what their motivation level really was. Or we may have somebody else that spins the same story, and then in a week they're like, okay, I'm at level 10. I finished all the training, and then now we can devote the time to those people, to kind of finish them through. But the training consists of, a lot of exercises, so it's a lot of education, not only importance of the CRM, just the, importance of the CRM. There's activities in there to where they're setting people up and they're tagging us in notes. So then we're able to go back and kind of comment and just review their activity, things like that. It's all very immersive, anywhere from that to contracts to tutorial videos. It all lives in there. So by the time they're kind of spit out of this machine at the end, they're really, they're educated. And that honestly came out of COVID. Part of it also because a lot of the kids are doing my kids are doing distance learning, and, teachers are thinking more creative ways to, to kind of bring people up to speed. So,
yeah, I think that's really important. I want to lean into that even a little bit more because I think, the idea that, that I see what a lot of people do is somebody comes in, their recruiting is centered around leads, right? So they're talking about leads the whole time. People come in, they're dying to get leads. They give them a bunch of leads, and then
they don't know what to do.
2 weeks later, it's like, why didn't they call these leads and make a note and do all those things? And I mean, obviously that's kind of a gross, under assumption, but I love the idea that you're training first, even from the conversation perspective, and then they can start to put in Sphere and maybe get some leads or do whatever. But I want to make that really clear to people who are here to learn about onboarding. And I think it's so important that recruiting and onboarding and even 30, 60, 90 review, like that's really all one thing, right? You can't have one independent of the other. So Alisa, do you have something to add to that? You're the onboarding person.
I do. So we used to sort of lead with leads in our interviews. And then we decided that, you know, what's more important to us is our agents being successful. And for them to be successful with us, they have to be able to utilize our systems. So we stopped leading with leads and we now lead with, you know, here's our value proposition to you. You know, we have all this technology that will, if you use it correctly, if you dedicate your time to learning our systems and learning our processes, then you will be successful. And then like at the very end, we'll be like, oh yeah, and we'll probably have some leads we can share with you. So we don't lead with it. And then we find that they're even more sort of excited to join our team because they feel like they're going to be successful versus like, oh, I'm just going to get a bunch of leads. And so that's been pretty successful for us, I think, as we've sort of shifted that in our interviews. So I did want to just mention that.
Cool. No, that's great. I think that's really good. And what, just to go a little more granular, like, do you guys mind sharing kind of what does happen a little more tactically? Like you have an interview or two or three, and then you say, okay, we're good. Kind of chronologically, what happens? Do they get a login to the training system first? Do they like, what is that?
Yeah. So if we decide, you know, it's a mutual fit, then we of course want them to join the board first. We don't restrict them from working with their own people. Like if they have their own friends or family that they want to work with, that is totally fine. But we're not going to give them any of our leads or anything until they've made it through training. So the first level is just sort of getting them set up, getting them familiar with some things. Then we move to follow-up boss because that's, you know, one of the most important things that is going to be their lifeline. So we've pulled integrated stuff from your guys' training on your website with the customizations that we've done and put it into a Google Classroom that, like Casey mentioned, has, you know, we have quizzes, we have activities, they're setting people up, they're uploading documents, adding background so that they're learning all the things that they're going to need to do when they truly have their own leads and as their database grows. From there, we move on to, you know, setting up searches, setting up showings, what they're going to do when they have a buyer that wants to make an offer, writing offers, understanding, you know, the different loan programs. And then we have the full contract to close process. We also have listings somewhere in there also, but basically like from the beginning, you start like, okay, what do I have here? I have a database, but by the end of the training, they're like, okay, contract to close. Now they're understanding that process. Maybe they're not retaining all of it, but at least we're giving them a foundation that as they start working with people, they're going to realize, oh wait, I think I remember that from training. They can go back in there or they can ask us questions, but at least it gives them the framework because we feel like sometimes people get into real estate and then they have no idea what to do. They get licensed and they're like, okay.
Right. But there's always a fine line, right? You can't brain dump all of that stuff on them, but you can set the stage that it exists and then it's a reference for them.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think that's really smart.
I think additionally, even through the training, there's a sense of security because even, you know, one of the earlier stages is the follow-up boss. And a lot of the agents they're wondering, like, they don't know how to talk to people. They think that since they don't have all the answers to every real estate problem in the world that, you know, they're not going to be successful. But you know, we have hundreds of email templates, text templates, you know, all of these things that are pre-built in there that, you know, make them look like an expert. So, you know, if somebody asks them a question about, you know, zoning or permitting, or a buyer wants to submit a low offer and they can't talk them up, like it's searchable all by keywords. So they can, as being a brand new agent that, you know, doesn't know how to answer these questions, they click one button. Here's a well-articulated, crafted email that is, you know, specific to that, you know, that thing. And, you know, it saves them time, and they can put their own flair on it. They can, you know, type something in that says, great talking to you today. And then, you know, then here's this, you know, paragraph or two that explains that problem specifically and handled, and it's approved. You know, it's a message that, you know, has taken a lot of time to, like, I'm literally now, like, when I go into my email, if I don't have a template to answer somebody, I'm like, oh, I gotta type something up. You know, it's come to that. It really has come to that. But in order to be efficient and you know, just having that consistency in our messages to our consumers. I mean, we have templates to realtors, you know, where if we're submitting a low offer to a realtor, like you know, sometimes agents are all worked up and, you know, just they get nervous about that. But there's, you know, one saying, hey, listen, we know that this is low, but this is all that we can, get our owners to do, or, the buyers to do at this point. So I don't know, just some things like that. Just, I feel like give new agents a peace of mind, like they're, okay, I learned a bunch of real estate laws. I don't know anything practical. And then soon into the training, they're like, oh, well, I have all the answers, so I don't need to know everything, because I search for it. I click a button and then, I send a message. And if I need help, I just tag the office in it, and somebody can jump in immediately and be able to kind of assist with that. So right. I feel like that's been kind of some good training wheels for people that are starting out.
Yeah, and I was going to mention too, I mean, what a great culture start to just kind of, you're not just saying like we have your back, you're literally demonstrating like we have all this stuff for you, and we'll make more if you, because I can relate to that too. It's like, oh, what do I have to type words? Like this blank page in front of me, what am I going to do, Yeah. So I think that's really brilliant, but I just wanted to emphasize the idea that you really are, from the get-go demonstrating that you're there to help push them along, and not just, like, hey, let me know when you made 100 calls or whatever. So
yes.
Yeah, that's really great. Does anybody else any of you have anything else to kind of add to the onboarding or kind of the new agent process? I know we have other things we want to get to, but.
Any of us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The hot sheets and the group chats.
While they talk about it, I guess one of the things that I'll add to it, you do get so much knowledge from those email templates and stuff that we've developed. Just in the 3 years I've been with the company, they've evolved so far that if you don't understand the answer to something, when you are sending that template out, you're answering your own question. It just really does help you to expand your knowledge base far beyond what somebody who's been in real estate for, potentially days or weeks. That there's no reason why somebody should know those things, but it really does help you progress as an agent a lot faster than anybody else would.
Yeah, for sure. And something I think actually I talked about with you guys before was the idea that then that also creates a consistent consumer experience.
Yes.
So not only your agents feel good, but the consumer, because that's always the worry, right? When you're growing a company, it's like, oh, they're not going to get me, or are they going to get somebody new, or how's this going to work? But that really kind of supports both sides of that. So.
Yeah.
Somebody asked if we're willing to share our email templates.
Oh, they're messaging us?
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Well, you guys can do that.
It's like popping up on the, all the questions are popping up. So
we can
impressive.
Sorry, we all, I like it perfect. We all have ADD, so that was like, oh, squirrel.
Who are we talking to?
Yeah.
Well, you guys have a lot, so it's hard to share that many, but we can circle back in the Facebook group if you guys are willing to share some. We can handle that there. There was one good quick question I wanted to ask. Somebody asked how many, or Lyndon, you want to tackle that? How many hours?
Yeah, how many hours of training does your team usually spend in the Google Classroom?
So, I mean, I guess, and we just had an agent interview yesterday that he had asked that, because he's a math teacher for 17 years, and he wants to do in summers and evenings and things. And he had asked that same question. I do feel like it depends on how much, like it could take a month, or, somebody I would think realistically could probably finish in a week. There is a lot of stuff. I mean, we do go pretty granular with it. I mean, there's videos about septic inspections. There's videos about, there's Zillow conversion playbook, we have built in there. Like, there's a lot of stuff that just, it depends on how, and they have to take the quizzes, I guess, at the end. I would say, short answer would probably be
2 weeks.
Yeah, would be probably 2 weeks to be able to kind of have a quality experience.
If they're full-time, they have nothing else going on, and they just want to devote it to training, because, we do mock calls with them and all this other stuff that happens in between the levels. So if it's a full-time person that's like, I'm ready to hit the ground running, probably 2 weeks, and then we can get them going.
Yeah.
And you'd say 2 weeks for the entire onboarding process then, basically?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And there's a quick follow-up to that. Just says, how often are you updating that content potentially?
The content, yeah.
Too often.
A lot.
Yeah. So that's the problem, is because we we do create something, and then you guys come out with some.
I was gonna say
the next
Yeah.
shiny feature.
New feature.
And yeah, so I mean,
Give
just
me a heads up.
recently we revamped it all, and it was the shared inboxes. Now we're doing the calling feature. Now, you know, so there's it changed a lot of things in the way. So yeah, literally we're having to keep going back, and I'd say it's almostly yeah. Some of the framework is still the same, but then it's just we're doing things a little bit differently. So a septic inspection is always going to be a septic inspection, or you know whatever. But you know some of the things as new features come out, we want to try to utilize the best way that we can, and that changes what we're teaching our people. So yeah.
I think one thing that we've gotten a lot better at is, you know, even during COVID, there were some times where we found something new and we immediately wanted to roll it out before we even really completely understood it ourselves. But we've gotten a lot better at pacing ourselves and, you know, really getting a better grasp of it and then releasing it. And it gives a lot less headache to the agent because we can explain it better. And when they have issues with it, you know, we know how to solve it rather than like messaging support at follow-up boss, like help, you know, we don't know what we're doing. So I think that's one of the biggest things is instead of jumping the gun on everything, like do spend a little bit of time getting a grasp of it yourself and then pushing it out.
Yeah, and I think it lends more credibility because since we R&D'd it, you know, for a month or so before we're like, this is the next best thing. I feel like it, you know, because by that time it's proven. So, you know, there's a better, people are more likely to adopt it because it's, you know, it works.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. I'm glad you brought that up, Noah, because I think really, truly, you know, a lot of people really are, you know, similar to what we said before about the leads. Like it's just a race to get this new feature, but you know, why don't we? And I think that's kind of you too, isn't it, Noah? Like you're kind of the one that explores what it can do before you roll it out.
Quite a bit. Definitely, Alisa and we're always wanting to see, you know, what new we can add to it. And I always try to read through the follow-up boss emails, and you know, every time that little indication comes up on the right, you know, with the new feature, we're getting excited because we're ready to use it. We're like, why didn't they do this last week? You know?
Got a good question here. How much of your process is automated, and how much are one-on-one trainings?
A lot of it is automated. Mostly pretty much the whole onboarding experience is automated, other than, you know, going on shadowing and mock calls and things, but everything else is they're doing it. You know, they get to the end of the follow-up boss training and they're setting up a person in follow-up boss and setting them up on a search, and that once they're done with all of that, we're tagged in it so that we can review and see, did they learn how to set someone up the way we expect them to be set up. Same thing with, as we get to like the contract to close process, you know, we really have figured out how to automate a lot of that process using action plans and also the custom fields and integrating those in email templates. So, you know, you get your contract, you fill out all the important information in the custom fields, and we already have a really long email that explains everything about the process for the consumer, that as long as that information is input correctly in custom fields, the agent just puts it in, uses the template, and their buyer knows when their inspection is, what the inspection means, all of everything. And so, you know, that's something else that they'll do in training. They'll do a pretend contract, put it all in, make sure they know how to use the templates, and we just go in and make sure that everything looks right. You know, they'll send us the test email, we'll read through, make sure everything looks right, the dates are correct, etc. So we love the automation and things.
Yeah, and really, I mean, yeah, it just boiled down to just not investing our time into people that weren't willing to invest the time in themselves, and that somewhat served that purpose and kind of kept it hands off and then when we are spending time, it is more of that. Then we're doing the role play. Then we're doing, you know, they're shadowing showings. Then we're doing like the things that are physically requiring our time. But at that point, they've already proved themselves because they work through the system, and it's a lot, you know. So they're investing a lot of time in themselves, you know, up until that point.
Another awesome question here, and I would love to hear, is how do you market your new agents when they first come on board?
To the public or to our team?
I would imagine, I'm thinking probably to the public, it would be
Public,
what
yeah.
they're referencing.
Well, we add them to our website. We shout them out on our social pages. We don't really do a lot of direct mail or anything. A lot of our reach is internet based.
Okay.
So yeah, we blast them out. We put out their information and we add them to our website, and they kind of take off from there.
Well, all of our marketing is just our brand.
Yeah.
We don't market like individually, or market individually, market our brand. So
I mean, we do. I mean, part of that training. I mean, the first level is, they're providing the headshot and their bio, and they're doing different things like that. So that's what we're using for those, marketing blasts. And it's Noah's putting it on the website, and we do have people there. I mean, they're searching for realtors in Lakeland, Florida, and they're finding us, and they're reading people's bios, and they're contacting someone specifically based on how they were able to connect. One person's on our team is from Ukraine, and she just got a lead the other day that somebody wanted to work with her specifically because of that, or so I feel like
We also put them in our newsletter.
oh yeah,
it's a newsletter that goes out.
But it's an e-newsletter, not
An email, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And real quick, because we did not talk about this, and I don't want to get too granular on it, but like, what do you guys use for your actual onboarding checklist? Like when you said bio and headshot, my thought went to like, are those follow-up boss tasks, or where do you put those tasks?
Yes. So it's an onboarding action plan.
Okay. Is the agent also on that plan? Like some things are for them, some things are for you, or just internal?
So we have like a little of both. We have one that's just for us that our internal team will only see. And then there's one that will have different steps that both of us will be checking off.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. I had a note to bring that up, and
because it's so cool with the action plans. I mean, when you build it out, you can assign it to, I mean, like I can go in and assign certain things in there just to me, and then certain things to other people. So it makes it just, all you do is activate it, and it just makes it so easy.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's really nice for us because we all work on different steps of the process. Like, I work on the website, and, Lisa helps with a lot of the onboarding, Nikki helps with a lot of the onboarding. So we can all kind of spread out that workload rather than like it all being assigned to one person. We're trying to have to figure out if those tasks have been done or not. So, I mean, new agent comes on, the action plan starts, tasks show up in my inbox, and, we get them done. So it's really efficient. It doesn't take a lot of our time.
Yeah, and something else I remember talking to you guys about before as well is that then all that history is there. It's all, so you can see it. You don't have to be like, hey, Alisa, did you do the thing already? It's like you see that the task is checked off, and then you can do your part.
Yeah, because we collectively have like eight people working out of kind of one platform. And when you have that many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing, I mean, there's a lot bigger margin for mistakes, I think. Because you're all, trying to help, but then sometimes that could be problematic if things are missed. And, that's where, through time, we have kind of evolved processes that just are more efficient of us, teams working together. So, and it can be replicated. Any of the agents can replicate that same thing because we've already figured it out. We have the recipe for it. So,
or if somebody's out of town, then somebody else can handle those tasks for them while they're, I mean, it definitely all works together. One thing that's interesting about you guys too is like on some level, when I first kind of learned more about your business, I thought just conceptually, it seemed like you guys overlapped a bit. I was kind of like, wait, so what did they do? But the more we talk through it and the more I envision how it's set up, it 100% makes sense. And it 100% suits you. It's maybe not something somebody else needs to copy as a template, but it really suits like what you guys do and the tools that you use and how you have chosen, really learned and chosen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, we started out, and that's what we went through 2 trials of Follow-Up Boss, and with different emails. I don't know, it was a 14-day or 30-day, but we canceled.
We won't tell anybody. We'll just broadcast it.
We don't tell anybody.
Follow-Up 1.0 too, and then like Follow-Up 2.0 came out. We were like, all right,
good.
let's do it.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're so busy and you already have so many things going on that you feel like it's counterproductive to try to learn something new. But I mean, in hindsight, now looking back, 5 years, 5-6 years or so, like it was like, had we not made that choice back then, we would not have been able to even come close to the volume that we're doing now and give a good experience to the consumer, to our, co-broke realtors, to our team. Like it just would not have been possible. So
So putting the time in to learn the things and learn what works best for your team is definitely worth it.
and it wasn't like a plug and play. The functionality was there, but it was just, you know, building on that and just evolving the process based on what our needs were. And I feel like it wasn't just plug and play. You had to, you know, we had to work at it. But in the end, I mean, it replaced every system that we had. I mean, we had different programs we were using for checklists. We had different programs we were using for accountability. We had different programs, you know, and you know, we would constantly, tracking everything, you know, and we would bring it, we would try it the Follow Up Boss, really the infancy of it. We would try to, you know, convince agents, oh, here's this next new thing. Oh, we're going to use this for tracking now. Oh, we're going to use, you know, and, you know, and at its time we were using 5 or 6 different, you know, programs. And we've migrated it all into Follow Up Boss. That way it's already something they're familiar with. They're being onboarded from the very beginning, that's, you know, that's where all the tools are at. So it just made sense to combine every other program we were using within it. And we could do it successfully. I mean, we maybe here and there it lacked some functionality, but for the most part, you know, it suited our needs. Like we just had to find the hack, you know, we had to figure out how it would work. And, you know, I've done webinars with other people, you know, huge, you know, companies and, you know, an independent brokerage with, you know, 4 or 5 people. And they didn't know the functionality that it could have, the way that we're utilizing it. And normally it's a screen share where we're showing, you know, kind of showing people specifically what we're doing, but it's, I mean, from a transaction standpoint, I mean, just how everything can kind of flow nicely through there. It creates this amazing experience for the, you know, for the consumer. You know, they always have somebody to talk to, always has somebody that has the answers. I feel like it became very, very powerful. And I wasn't even paid to say that. So
No, that's great.
How do you guys train your new
webinar.
agents? Yeah, how do you guys train your new agents on Follow Up Boss? Right? Are there specific webinars that you send them to? Do you have kind of the resources prepared, ready for them? Do you train them one-on-one? How do you get them going?
So we have an integration of like some of the video trainings on your guys' site with the things that we use the most and the way that we want them to use them. And it's all in Google Classroom. So it goes through, you know, certain things. You start with, you know, building your database, reaching out to people, the basics, as deep as, you know, what to do when you're under contract with them. But yeah, I mean, we sit down with them because usually they get the gist of it in the Google Classroom, but when you can sit down with them afterwards and talk them through a couple things and they're like, okay, now I get that. That makes sense. So we do spend a little one-on-one time with them, but most of the time, I mean, the Google Classroom handles it. And the videos we have a mixture. So we have videos and we have reading material, and then we have the activity so that they're actually doing it, because obviously everybody learns differently. So, you know.
Yeah, the migration was necessary in Google Classrooms because we wanted to be able to track it. And we wanted to be able to know how, if we just say, hey, go on Follow Up Boss and watch a bunch of videos, or, you know, go on, look at, you know, Zillow conversion playbook, or you need to watch these videos. We had no proof that they did it. So having the quizzes, having that, you know, that structured that way, now we know that, you know, they're committed and they're actually doing those activities, because, you know, we found that like that, you know, when we left it up to them, then we'd get the questions that were in the training, and it would be bombarded with different questions, and it made it pretty clear that they didn't follow through. So that was, I mean, we had to migrate that out of necessity, I feel like.
Yeah. And some of the things really start making sense to them as their database grows, especially if they're a brand new agent. You know, we can explain and we can show them smart lists and the way that we utilize them for Follow Up Boss. But if they have no one in their database, it's really not going to make sense. And so some of those things, like, that's why we just like kind of build that foundation. Then as they have, you know, 30, 40, 50 people in their database, then they understand where the smart lists work and the automations and things like that. So, but we go over all of it from, you know, okay, here you have a blank Follow Up Boss. You have no people in here. And they start with how they're going to follow up with their first lead. And that's all in there.
Yeah, I want to re-emphasize or just make sure people understand that some of what you guys just said was that you're using content from other places and just have quizzes at the end to ensure that they actually watched it. So it's,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you guys have created a bunch of great content and all that. And I know you have within the CRM for the actual use, but I think it's super smart to use other
and
platforms content
Yeah,
on,
so
on how to use their platform.
yeah, we use that, but then we take the things that are our specific, because our tags, our stages, our specifics are different than what somebody else might use. So we take the basics and then we show them like, okay, so here's the foundation, here's how we want you to use it, here's how we use it, and then we, so it's a
That's
little
awesome.
bit of both.
We have a brave attendee who wants to hop on and ask a question. So I'm going to bring Janice on.
Cool.
Okay.
Sometimes it just takes a quick second. There you are. Janice, you're welcome to unmute yourself and you can turn on your camera if you wish. Hello there.
What's going on
Janice.
here? Sorry,
Very bright where you are, but that's not bad.
Wherever you're at, it's sunny.
guys don't.
Just live in Florida.
There you go.
Perfect.
Had terrible rain for the last 3 days, so we're welcoming this sunshine. So I've been a user of Follow Up Boss since 2014. I have to admit, I don't know it very well. I'm just scratching the outside surface of it. We do have a team in place, probably a little different than the team that you have there. My question is from the administrative side of Follow Up Boss and your team, the roles that you have, how many administrators, and how do you determine what each person from the administrator? I have a Follow Up Boss system that's also a lead generator. So the lead generator, the leads come into it, and then from there, we assign them to different agents. I find my weakness is from the administrative side, and I'm just curious of how you operate yours there.
It's a great question. Thank you.
So go ahead. Were you gonna?
No, I was going to call on you guys to answer that. Love it.
So we all have administrative rights, but are you guys utilizing the team feature at all?
Yes.
Yeah, so that has been really helpful for us as we're bringing on ISAs, because then it's easier to sort of figure out like, okay, as a whole, this entire group needs to be doing this, but then you can hyper get in on, that certain ISA, what are their tasks versus other. With respect to like assigning the leads, I would say just like maybe time blocking some time for just like, 30 minutes in the afternoon or 30 minutes in the morning where you just go through and you assign whoever the new leads are to the other agents, and then you don't worry about it again until the next day. I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Well, I guess my role, I guess my question is, how many admins actually work your Follow Up Boss? So is somebody creating action plans? Is somebody creating the letter campaign? Is there somebody working with the agents directly in leads? Yes. I just feel I have a weakness when it comes to admin, and I just want to understand maybe what area I should be filling in. And I'm just interested to see how you guys operate that way.
I see the question now. So yeah, we all kind of have a different strength in figuring out, Casey's super into the reporting stuff. I handle a lot of, like the automations, the custom fields, the templates, those things. You do a lot of like appointments and figuring out the deals tabs. Yeah. So everybody kind of has their own strength. And then as we figure out something that we need to update or that we would want to track better, whoever's area that is, we'll kind of say, if it has to do with something about some kind of template, I'll probably do that. Or like the custom fields, just kind of figure out whose strengths. Yeah. And then, once a week, every other week, just go through how you guys are utilizing Follow Up Boss. And if there's anything you want to update, whoever strength that is, by the next meeting, that should be updated.
Mm-hmm. So how many, all four of you as administrators, is that everybody in the back end?
We
No.
have us 4, and then we have 3 ISAs, and then Kristen too. So
And then
How
we're
many-
edits.
How many
There's like-
agents?
there's like 8 of us in the office on the admin side, and then agents. There's probably about a team of 20.
Yeah. I think I looked, there's like 22.
Yeah.
And which follow-up boss package or program do you fall under for your team?
I think it's the legacy is what we're on now. It's the one that has the calling and the calling has just been a recent migration.
I think
and
it's
we'll never-
platform. I think you guys are on platform, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And that allows
Yeah.
how many agents?
We have, I think, 22 now. So
about 30 users then, right?
yeah, it had a maximum. Yeah, it has 30 users.
So
Correct.
you're about 8 admin to 30 agents. Is that kind of the ratio I'm seeing here?
Or 20 agents. 22.
22.
Yeah, 22.
So 1 to 3 ish.
Yeah.
But I think they also share in more of the roles that are more global.
Yeah.
You know, they're not
Yeah,
like
they're all agents.
Yeah, so that's
And-
kind of where like the overlap comes in. You were saying earlier, like we do have a lot of overlapping in our job roles, but we also each have our own strengths. So we try to do as much as we can that tailors to our strengths, but for most everything we overlap on a lot of our job roles. So
and if I can jump in on that, I think as part of what might help answer Janice's question as well is like, maybe can you give us kind of the short version of how you came to that? Because I'm sure all 8 of you didn't just start at one. Like there was a progression of that.
Exactly.
Like Janice, you have to hire 7 people tomorrow. That's the solution. Let us know how that goes.
No, so well, yeah. So the backstory is, I mean, I was an independent agent, and I mean, I have my broker's license, but I was, just an independent agent technically, and it just became not sustainable anymore. So I was answering calls, showing clients, doing the, contract to close, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I hired Nikki as my first assistant, and that was 5-6 years ago.
almost 6 years ago.
So, that was basically just to help me. I didn't have an office. I didn't have anything. I told my wife, I was like, I don't even know, how do I even hire someone? I know I need help, but like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. And so when she had started, it was, we had no systems, absolutely nothing. I mean, because it was just me. I had some tracking, but it was like, it was weak, very, very weak.
Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. So, but here I'm paying for all this advertising. Then we're bringing on a few agents that have been kind of people from our sphere. And, and I was paying for all the marketing because that was originally my marketing dollars. And then now it's, agents coming on that, so then it just evolved out of that because I just didn't really, we were giving all these leads out, but we had no way of tracking who was calling, what they were doing. Then it went to Excel at one point that we were trying to track. And then that was the follow-up boss trials.
Yeah.
Noah, I hired him to help me take pictures of listings and do the Matterport 3D model and do drone and all of that stuff. And then he's like, I know how to do coding. I know how to do, I'm a wizard in Excel. I'm, all of these kind of things. So Alisa, we hired her to do transaction coordination. So she was our TC for about 2 years. And she helped kind of develop that program, but then she also showed that she was really strong with the agent onboarding and the interaction. So I think like everybody was hired to kind of do something separate, and then we all migrated into where our strengths were, but they all also kind of overlapped a little bit because, we all still have this underlying energy to, get better. So a lot of the collaboration, a lot of those kind of things were coming from different strengths. And then I don't know, I feel like that's kind of how things happened out of necessity because we needed better systems because we were growing as a team and we needed to be the most efficient that we could. So we weren't just a house of cards that, would just fall over one day because we didn't have our stuff together. So,
and I think one thing that we do really well is we're always looking for the inefficiencies in our operations and, how we're using the system and everything. And then we're finding, instead of just addressing that those exist, we're finding solutions to how to fix them. We're actively looking, an agent can understand, they're at capacity, they can't keep up with phone calls and, they feel scatterbrained, but they just live in that rather than always trying to move past it. You know, so we're researching constantly into Follow Up Boss into what things could make the system easier. And it's not even something that you have to be super technologically advanced at. It's just you have to use the tools that are presented to you. So I think Follow Up Boss does a really good job of explaining what it has to offer. You just have to look.
I find this is really helpful, guys. Thank you, because this is really where I'm at right now is what do I add to, so I'm with 4 agents and 2 admin. My second admin, I just hired 24 hours, who's just basically doing calls.
It's like an ISA.
But I know that in order for it to maximally work for me and to grow, at some point I got to add something else to it. And so I was interested to see how you grew there. So thank you for asking that.
Do you have a transaction coordinator?
Say it again.
Do you have a transaction coordinator?
I have, sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing. I have a full-time admin that really just takes care of all of the day-to-day operation of my business, and doesn't really have the extra time to put into the growth of the Follow-Up Boss that I would like. And then of course I have leads that come into it, and they're sitting there going cold. They're not getting to where they need to go. They're not being dealt with. And I know I need to add another level to it. And I really feel my weakness is more from the admin part of it.
Definitely look into Smart List for your new admin who's calling. That will help a lot with follow-up and just making sure whenever she calls that she's staging them in the correct stage. That way they'll fall on the right Smart List. So I'm sure there's lots of, I think you guys mentioned there was a Smart List whole.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about, webinars about Smart List and things like that. But essentially the ISAs, they work in order. We have the list based on priority. So for unactioned leads and, we won't go too in leads about that. But
I think the Follow-Up Boss software itself I'm utilizing quite well with, the action plans and the Smart List and, the tags and all of that stuff. But it's more from the administrative, and I really want to know what happens with the operation, how you connect each other. So
yeah, I feel like if I could jump in there a little bit, I feel like one of the things that you guys do really, really well is that you have empowered your guys to kind of find their own lane. And I think that is part of the magic of it. Like, they're not making Noah do a specific thing that's not him. They've all collaborated around kind of finding what they enjoy or what they can do, and obviously you can't only do the things that you only love, but I know that these guys have obviously made it a point to, the more people you add, the more you do have different skill sets. And so sometimes just having that conversation and finding the right, it's not the best term, but finding the right butt for the right seat.
Yeah. And Janice, if you wanted to ever, like offline or after this call at some point, if you wanted to, we could do a screen share where I can show you specifically maybe how some of our processes worked, and that way it may give you kind of a baseline of how we are doing it more on a kind of a technical level. I'm sure, it wouldn't be end up part of this, but we're more than willing to share.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. I'm gonna make sure you guys get linked up too. So that's awesome. Thanks for coming on, Janice. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we've got somebody else, Joseph. I'm gonna bring him on. Oh, that was too fast. Maybe I brought somebody else on.
We brought him on.
There we go.
Oh, and Joseph. We got both of them
Hey,
on.
it's a party.
Good.
All right, Joseph. Hey, you're on. You can unmute yourself and/or turn on your camera.
Hi guys, can you see me, hear me?
Yeah, hello there.
Okay, hey, I'm Joe in Columbus, Ohio. I've been using Follow Up Boss off and on probably for the last 2 or 3 years. And I find myself, one area I struggle, I'd used KV Core and Boomtown in the past. And a lot of my follow-up with like buyer leads that would come in would be through like email listing alerts. So with this tool, it's not connected to my IDX feed. How are you using Follow Up Boss to stay in front of these buyer prospects with new listings, so that you're keeping top of mind, and they're not going, out to the other websites to, get picked up by another agent?
So we use YLopo, which is just an incredible tool. I'd highly recommend you look into it. It's the letter Y and then LOPO. So they integrate really, really well with Follow Up Boss in the way that it's always telling you alerts of, when people are looking on your website, what properties they were looking at, what they were favoriting. And then it also has lead generation built into that. If you wanted to, spend some additional money there. It just makes it really easy because it's all held in that Follow Up Boss platform. So you're like I said, you're always seeing what your people are looking at, and you're not setting them up in say MLS, and you can actually put those IDX feeds from YLopo on your website as well.
So is this different than what I have the tag that's in my WordPress website. So when somebody goes on there in Follow Up Boss, I can see where they've, been on my website. Maybe they clicked on a few different properties. But my thing is, let's say if they came in and they looked at, 2 houses in zip code 43201 between $300,000 and $500,000. Is there a tool or a system that you're using that's helping to integrate Follow Up Boss so that I can send them listing alerts every single day for homes in that price range in 43201?
Yeah. So the really cool thing about YLopo is it's got a dynamic tool to where it's a computer AI system that's looking at what kind of properties they're looking at historically. And it's actually basing their search on the things that they're interested in. So like if they're looking in that zip code, it's going to favor properties in those zip codes and send to them. And like I said, it's always notifying you when people are looking there. So you're able to kind of get on a more granular basis and start adjusting that search, based on what you see fit with that client. So,
awesome. That's very helpful. Thank you.
No problem.
Cool, man. Thanks for hopping on.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, the handshake between, and the integration between YLopo and Follow Up Boss is really solid.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it integrates with our smart list and our follow up and just our insight on the consumer is really powerful.
Cool. And I dropped a link to that in the chat as well. And certainly the integration with Follow Boss is really the powerful part.
That's what makes it, exactly. Yeah. That's what makes it powerful. And in fact, I just had a call the other day about that they were, asking specifically about YLopo, but it has to be that integration in order to make it successful. That's
what I've personally always said about Follow Boss, right? You want the best CRM that integrates with the other best tools, not to try to squish it all into one system.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Linda, do we have some more questions, I think?
We do have a couple more just to hit here at the end. How many agents have completed the Google Classroom training? Do you know offhand?
So we used to have something that we called LFR University. So that was a different,
it lived on our website before.
Yeah. So Google Classrooms, like Noah mentioned earlier, we created actually during COVID. So we've only onboarded, I think, like 4 or 5 agents with Google Classrooms. So it's still fairly new for us, but so far has been successful.
Yeah, we had the same kind of framework on the website, but we had no way of tracking it. We just didn't have that functionality to be able to create quizzes and things like that. All the content lived there, and the people got their own unique login, but we had no record of whether they actually did it or not. So that's why moving to Google Classrooms was a big win for us.
Cool. A couple, 1 or 2 more here. I know we didn't want. How about recruiting? Is there any kind of just real quick best practice or tip for recruiting new agents that you guys might have? Maybe a one-liner or something.
Be good people.
So actually, so I have one, and actually it's what you do. So, and as I mentioned before, like we're not, we care more about the individual than we do, just having the most agents in our town. So it's more for us like a marathon than it is a sprint. So we're not trying to just, it's not a cattle call for us. So one of the things that we're doing that I feel like is is a pretty good idea, and it's been well received. And Nikki does it every day. Is we look at hot sheets. So in MLS, we have set up search it, or we basically have, who got listings in our area, who had closings, and they're on action. We put them on action plans within Follow Up Boss, and we have text templates to where, she's congratulating agents in our area that when they get a listing. So it's a GIF that has, somebody like popping, I know,
Champagne or whatever.
yeah, and it's just some funny GIF, and it says, congratulations on your listing at, wherever the thing. She's copy and pasting it from MLS, but over time, our thought is, number one, we're still building this reputation not only with the with the community and our brand, but also with fellow realtors. So and just congratulating people for getting new listings, even though they're our competitors. And sending emails when people are having closings and things like that is just something that, someday their business is going to get lean, or their broker's not appreciating them. And here they got this competitor that's, complimenting them. It is going to be something where, people will surface from that because we're paying attention to them when maybe their own brokerage isn't. So I feel like that's kind of a little hack, I guess, that, we're not doing. That's not a traditional kind of thing that people do, but it is something that we're orchestrating through Follow Up Boss, and it's going to be a powerful tool. So I don't know.
And we want to build the relationship with not only our, like he mentioned, co-brokers, the people that we're working with on the deals, but also our goal is to give our clients the best experience that they can have. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times the people that come to us are like, we read about all your reviews on Google, because we're going the extra mile to make sure that everybody's having a good experience. Mm-hmm. Obviously everything's not going to be easy in a real estate transaction, but we just try to be good people.
Well, I think that long game strategy is really smart for recruiting too. That's where you are going to get, the quality over quantity. So that's really great. So I'm going to wrap us up here just in a second because we're right at time, but I would love to have you guys back again. There's probably 1,000 different topics we could cover.
Yeah, I literally didn't scratch the surface.
We literally, none of us crossed off anything on our list even, but I think it was really getting a lot of good feedback from people, both on Facebook and in the chat here, and really appreciate you guys being willing to share so freely all the great stuff you guys are doing.
Great job, guys. That was great to listen to.
I mean, we listen to, we're always remain open-minded and very coachable. So, a lot of the things that we learned, maybe if we kind of took it and ran with it in a different, direction, but we learned a lot from listening to other people. So we're definitely coming from an area of contribution because we've, learned a lot. Barry Jenkins and, some of these other people that, Smart List and things like that. We had to learn from other people too. So we're happy to help.
That's amazing. Great. Well, we'll certainly be in touch and have you guys back soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.